Well, welcome to our fourth and final Include Speaker Series speaker evening. It is Sunday. We have been working hard through Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and so I really appreciate people coming this evening and taking the time to join us. I'm thrilled to welcome our guest speaker this evening. His name is Rabbi Juan Mejia. He was born in Bogota, Colombia. Raised a Catholic, he converted to Judaism after discovering the powerful beauty and message of Judaism. He holds a degree in philosophy from the Universidad Nacional de Colombia and a master's degree in Jewish civilization from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Juan was ordained in 2009 by the Jewish Theological Seminary of America in New York. He lives in Oklahoma City, where he serves as a Jewish educator for Emanuel Synagogue. He also serves as Rabbi-in-Residence for Be'chol Lashon. Juan is a passionate advocate for converts and making Torah available to all. He has been teaching Torah in Spanish for over a decade through his website. So I would love to welcome you, Juan, to our community.
Thank you, Adam. It's glad to be back. I'm I don't get to be in San Francisco as often as I would like. And before I tell you about what I do, I want to go into the story a little bit in order to understand the future. I think a little bit of the past needs to be unpacked. As Adam said, I was born a Catholic in Colombia. And when I was a teenager, and this is a story that might be familiar to some of you, it's been coming up quite a lot recently. I was informed of the distant Jewish roots of the family, going all the way back to Spain with a substantial period in which we were hiding in the hills of Colombia, keeping some vestigial identity of Judaism up to my great-grandfather's generation, who saw himself as Jewish. I cannot vouch for what he was doing that was Jewish. My grandfather only remembers that he would put on a towel on his head to pray, and that they had to marry their cousins because no one else would marry into the family. They were like shunned, and it was very endogamic. Just think like West Virginia, but Sephardic, like very, very intense, kind of like endogamic, up in the mountain folk. And once that was opened, I got very curious about Judaism, and I started reading a lot about what Judaism meant and what Judaism practiced. And growing up in Colombia, we don't have Seinfeld in Colombia. We don't have like that rich, it's not even rich, like the poor texture of like a little Yiddish or like a Jewish character in a sitcom. We don't have that. It's a 40 million people country with about 8,000 Jews when I was growing up. Very invisible community. So there's not a lot of information. But everything that I read, everything that I explored, I became more and more in love with it. I went to university. I tried to get my hands on as many Jewish books as I could, reading, and finally I visited Israel, and it was this incredibly powerful sense of loss. I felt that this had been taken away from me, that this should have belonged to my family, that we kept this alive for about 300 years, whatever this was, because I had no experience of Judaism, but that now that I could theoretically be a Jew and embrace my roots and embrace this beautiful way of life, that had been caught just before it got to me. And that was a thought that rested very, very poorly with me. And after meditating quite long on it, I decided that I needed to convert. And that is where my trouble began, because I reached out to the Jewish community in the city of my birth, in Bogota, and they were in no uncertain terms uninterested in receiving anyone. In the beginning, I thought, oh yeah, no, I've read, like, you must reject me 3 times. Like when I do my second, which of course, just in case you don't know, that is actually not true. That is one of the greatest myths in Jewish law, and it's completely bogus. It's based on a midrash, and we do not, midrashim are nice, but we don't necessarily follow them. No, there was like, no, we are a very close community. Unless you are marrying someone, we will not convert you. So I was in this limbo for so many, like many years, kind of practicing Judaism on my own, buying books. There were a couple of Jewish members of the community who would invite me over for Shabbat, and they were very impressed with my tenacity and my crazy attraction for Judaism. But they could not help me. So once I finished my degree, I went to Jerusalem. I ended up going to Israel, and there I immersed myself in the smorgasbord of Jewish life in Jerusalem and Torah learning, and I dabbled in the many flavors of Judaism that are available. But in the end, I could not be untrue to my own kind of conscience. One of the great things that bothered me about Catholicism growing up was its lack of egalitarianism. The fact that my sister, who was a much better Catholic than I was, could not amount to much. Maybe she could be like an abbess or a mother superior, while I, if so chose, wanted to be Pope. My parents greatly were rooting for me to become Pope. I don't think that is happening. They're gone, so I don't think they're disappointed. I think they're seeing things at a different plane, but they were quite surprised that I did not become Pope. So I ended up affiliating with egalitarian communities and pursuing a conservative conversion in Israel. And I enrolled in the conservative yeshiva, where I met a lovely girl from Florida. And to make a very long story, well, it's to make a shorter story shorter, 6 months later, we were married, and we were like already like looking into our future. She always knew she wanted to be a rabbi, and I wanted to be boring. I wanted to be a philosophy professor and be with my manuscripts and translate things and translate things. And then something really odd happened, which was I went to pay my rent. And they asked me the question that usually begins my whole spiel, which is, Juan, you're Juan, but you speak English so well. Where did you learn English? And I go, Catholic school. And they go, Catholic school? But you're a good Jewish boy. And then I tell my whole story about like growing in Colombia, elite Catholic school, discovering my roots, coming back to Judaism. He said, oh, this is so good. Let me interview. Like, can I interview you? And I say, sure, of course, you're my landlady. She interviews me. A month later, I come back to pay my rent and says, you have fan mail. Fan mail? From what? Well, it turns out that this interview went out into the webpage of the Sochnut, of the Jewish Agency for Israel, and most of the stuff is translated into Russian, French, English, and Spanish. And she started getting all these emails from people in Latin America with very similar stories saying, hey, look, my name is Maria. My grandmother told me that we used to be Jewish and she used to light candles. And I'm very curious. I need to kind of find a way like to learn, but no one will teach me. I can't get any books. Latin America is not and this was when the internet was still in its infancy. I, a privileged man in Bogota, could access internet with like dial-up, and I could access the internet. People in Guatemala could go to a cafe and send an email. So there was not a lot of Safari. It did not exist yet. Or even worse stories like, my name is Moshe. I know I'm Jewish. I want to be Jewish, but I knock at the shul. I knock at the door of the synagogue. They've called the cops on me. How did you do it? How did you get to belong to this people? You are married to a Jew. You're living in Jerusalem. You're studying in yeshiva. How did you do it? And I answered all these emails like I'm sorry. I was just lucky. It was Providence. I was here. My wife's American. And eventually that answer wore thin. And then she is the smartest rabbi I know. And she said, look, she quoted Hillel at me and she said, in a place where there is not a mensch, in a place where there is not a person who will take responsibility, you have to take responsibility. But I want to be boring. And she said, rabbis can be boring too, don't worry. So that is how I ended up going to rabbinical school with her. And we ended up going in New York. And the reason we went to New York is actually sad, and it kind of prefigures a little bit of what my struggle as a rabbi today is, partially, which is that I could not become a citizen of Israel because my conversion was not Orthodox. Now, the legislation has changed back and forth, but now I, for God's incredible irony, I sit in the committee of the Rabbinical Assembly, which is the Union of Conservative Rabbis, and I am the head of the committee that oversees conversions. So I get all the nasty emails, and I know for a fact that even if you're American, even if you're not coming from the third world, if you are a person of color, if you are a person with a name that is not ending in a couple of consonants, you're going to have a hard time immigrating to Israel, even if you are Jewish, even if you're born Jewish. And imagine just trying to convert to Judaism in the outskirts of the Jewish world. I went to rabbinical school, and then I started to meet these folks, these Moshes and these Marias, and I started to teach them using YouTube, using like Web 2.0, open source. Everything is open, everything is free. All of my Torah I got for free. All of my Torah to them is also free. And I started building relationships. And aside from teaching and translating things and making a siddur, like, how can I really help them? That this is good, but this is a Band-Aid. And then I met this incredible group of people in my native country of Colombia that said, you should be a rabbi. You're Colombian, we're Colombian, we're on the same page. You're egalitarian, we want to be egalitarian. You want to create a Judaism that is vibrant, but at the same time Latino and authentic to who we are. Let's build that together. And that is how I got involved in this crazy world that I'm about to present to you. And I think that Rabbi Sizomu last week might have given you a very robust speak. This is a different face of this phenomenon, which is what I call emergent communities. Okay, so first I just want to show you a couple of pictures, because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, emergent communities, everybody's Sephardic, everybody's grandmothers. Oh no, this is not the. No, this is a good slide to begin with. So this is a map that I have compiled. I define an emergent community as a community of Jews. I do not count Messianics. I don't count crypto-Christians or people who have blended Judeo-Christian theologies. These are people who have adopted a form of mainstream Jewish belief, unmixed with any other foreign religion, even that most people grew up in a religion not Judaism. The yellow points indicate communities that self-identify as Orthodox. The blue ones, communities that self-identify as Reform, and the red ones, communities that self-identify as conservative. So as you see, there is a very strong ground zero in what Central America, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Brazil. And these communities, a lot of people say, oh yeah, everybody's a descendant and everybody's a Marano and everybody, although that's not a good word, please don't use that, Anusim, and a lot of these stories of hidden Jews, like my family, have been a little over-romanticized. And I want to show you the diversity of these communities, their project, but also their struggles, but also the brilliant future that I think awaits them. And us, because their stories are intertwined with ours. So I'm going to show you 3 examples of emerging communities in Latin America. The first one, let me slideshow. First slide. I hope you see it. This is Comunidad Bet Etz Chaim in Huánuco, Peru, a Reform Ashkenazi congregation. So 100 years ago, the Jewish community of Huánuco looked like this. And if you look closely at the picture, you'll see Lithuanian Chassids and European settlers from Poland, Lithuania, Russia. At this time, the big business in Peru was rubber. Mr. Ford has just invented his Model T, and you can get everything to build a car in Michigan except one thing: rubber for the tires. Rubber does not grow in Michigan. It grows in the jungle. And these folks were in charge of schlepping stuff from the sea, from the coast, getting it up the Andes, and then getting it on the other side of the Andes to the lowlands, into the jungle. They were helping the rubber fields. If you go to the city of Iquitos in Peru today, you will also find a vibrant community of descendants of Moroccan Jews who Morocco at the time was suffering a lot of economic troubles, and particularly second, third, illegitimate children made their way to make a buck. This was a place where people were becoming rich overnight, and they settled, and they had many, many children with local women. And now 3-4 generations later, there is this sense of recovery of the roots. So this is the community 100 years ago. This is what the community looks today. Now, these people all have Ashkenazi last names, most of them. Some people are just attracted by Judaism and they have joined it, but the core members of the community are all descendants of these Lithuanian, Polish settlers. Their name are Bauer, Rotlevitz, Cohen, right? But as you see, they look perfectly and completely indigenous. The Gingy guy is a test. He's American. He's not a local. He's an activist, and he's a teacher for Kulanu, which is an organization that shares many of the same goals as Be'chol Lashon, and is involved in this work. And he was there helping them with the first bar mitzvah in Huánuco. It's a Reformed congregation, egalitarian, but as you see, very bare bones. That this is not a fancy sanctuary designed. No, this is bare bones, but of course a lot of spirit and a lot of devotion, because every Jewish thing that they build, they have to build themselves. Now you would say, oh, they're descendants of Jews. Like Jews in Lima, Jews all around should be very excited to be helping them. And the answer is no. The Jews in Lima do not want to see them. They don't want to see them in their synagogue. And that's why they have to reach out to American rabbis or Israeli rabbis. They have to go beyond the borders of the country, because the racial and social dynamics of the Jewish community in Latin America are, and I don't use this word lightly, extremely colonial and shameful to people of color, to Jews of color, and to intermarried families. It's not a good panorama. So these guys, for example, were converted by a rabbi from Texas. A Reform rabbi from Texas had to fly in a Beit Din because the rabbis 100 miles, 200 miles from where they were could not interact with them. It's not that just couldn't convert. They can't teach them. They can't sell them kosher wine. They can't let them in. It's complete separation. This is one of the Torahs that some of the families have preserved since the time of their great-grandparents. So this is one model of people recovering their Jewish roots, but not necessarily Sephardic roots. There is also a lot of that. But in this case, this is fresher. These people, like their grandparents were Jewish. Oh, 500 years ago, we used to be Jewish, which, by the way, and people a lot of times ask me the question, like, oh, but what percentage of Latinos are descended from Jews? And people love to say like millions, like they go into this Carl Sagan exaggerate. But my answer is even more exaggerated. My answer is every single Latino, every single one of us that has a modicum of European background has Jewish background, period. That is also meaningless. That doesn't make us Jewish. That doesn't make us Philo-Semites. That doesn't mean that all Latinos should convert to Judaism, but it does show that Latino identity and Jewish identity are far more complex. We are used to these very monolithic narratives of identity, and in Latin America, a lot of people have like Jewish memories. And right now, like when I said this 20 years ago, everybody said, you're crazy. Right now, the Spanish and the Portuguese government are pretty much selling passports. I think it's a terribly misguided and misapplied law in which they will grant citizenship to descendants of expelled Jews during the Inquisition. That's wonderful. That should be celebrated. What has been happening in Colombia is that my classmates from the very elite school have been texting me on WhatsApp saying, hey, I just got my Sephardic citizenship. It's like, what do you mean? You're not Jewish. In fact, I recall you had like quite a bit of Nazi paraphernalia in your room when I went to do that, like work with you. Like, I know, well, but when you can get a genealogist, they can find you a Jewish relative, and then you get a Spanish passport, you get a European passport. So right now, everybody who has 8,000 euros is discovering a Jewish grandfather or Jewish great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather several times removed because it's advantageous. But in many ways, it is proving my point. The point that I would like to prove is not just that white cosmopolitan, suburban rich Colombians have Jewish ancestors, but also the taxi driver and the maid and the guy that cleans toilets. They just don't have $8,000 to prove that they are also descended from Jews. But a lot of these people are finding Judaism appealing. That's a different story. This is Shalom San Miguel. Shalom San Miguel is in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico, Guanajuato. Lovely community. If you ever go, it's a very strange place. It's up in the mountains of Mexico. And for the last 60 years, it's kind of a blended city of Mexicans and Americans, American, European expats. Of course, there's a sizable number of Jews. And these people, about 10 years ago, started showing up and knocking at their door and saying, we heard you're Jewish. We heard like this hotel on Saturdays is where Jews meet to pray. Can we pray with you? Some people had like Jewish history. Some said, I just love Judaism. I've always loved Jews. And these being nice American, democratic, like open Jews raised in a democratic society and not in a colonial, well said, of course, you're welcome. These same people would not make it through the door in the synagogue in Mexico City. Like they wouldn't make it through the front gate of the complex. And this was our first conversion. This is a younger me. This is Rabbi Danny Melman from LA. He's Argentinian. And this is Rabbi Felipe Goodman. He is Mexican. And these are all of our candidates. We trained them relying on local leaders and doing a lot of virtual Zoom. Well, it was not Zoom back then, it was Skype and like everything. Oh, that's so fake. You can never do Judaism online. You can never pray online. You can never do a Shiva visit online. And how wrong have they been? I knew they were wrong 10 years ago, but now everybody knows that they were wrong. And this was the first mikveh. And as you see, I want to show you pictures. This is the community that received them. And this is the community that they built. So by creating this synergy between born Jews and open a proactively Jewish community that embraces converts, they have gained youth, they have gained children. Now there's been a mitzvah. The current president is a Mexican convert, and he's doing a wonderful job leading the community through pandemic. So this is a community that has created something very beautiful. And to me, this is one of the greatest arguments for this is the right thing to do. This is our adventures in mikvah building. Of course, this community did not have a mikvah. Now they do. It's a very pretty mikvah. So we had to go to the river. And the problem is that this river is where the women do their laundry. So we had to come and set up, this is the community sukkah. And we would set it up over one of the hot springs, and then people would do the immersion so they could do it with a modicum of modesty in a very public place. But entrepreneurial adventure Judaism is definitely my thing. And as you see, the group started to grow because more people from the surrounding cities heard, oh, this is a place, this is an open place. And whenever I go, I tell them, you are the city on the hill. You are the shining beacon of a community where anyone can walk in the door and not be kicked out and learn and participate. And if you're serious and if you're willing to put in the work, to join. So, oops. Of course, all the couples need to be remarried according to Jewish tradition. So you get to have a little simcha. And this is my baby. This is my baby that I invented. These are the people that showed me the way. This is in Santa Marta, Colombia. This is our mikvah. It's very nice. I love my mikvah. And this is my community. These are my. I'm a Litvak, but these are my Hasidim. These are my students, and I've seen them grow, and I am so proud of them because what they built after having many bad experiences where they had been tricked by fake rabbis, by Messianic pastors pretending to be rabbis, or by Orthodox rabbis who only wanted to extort money out of them and made them dress in black and white. And so like, this is the only way of being Jewish. We managed to create something in which men and women could participate, in which they didn't have to change who they were, because who they are is beautiful. They're incredible people. They're generous, they're giving, they're happy, right? This is a Judaism of joy, not of oi. These people like put a lot of, they bring the joy, and this is Havdalah in their community, and they've struggled. It's hard. They're doing Judaism on their own for more than 12 years. Now, what one would say, oh, well, of course, they're now members of a movement, right? They're members of the Jewish community. You know how long it took me to affiliate them to the conservative movement? 9 years. 9 years. And I had to affiliate them with the American branch, not with the Latino one. Buenos Aires, Mexico, oh, we don't know. If we let them join, some shuls might leave. I don't know. They said, we don't need this. These people don't want us. We want to go with people who want us. And they wrote to New York. They wrote to Miami, and Miami and New York said, you're welcome. You're clearly a Jewish community that's doing things right. Like, you've survived on your own. You have this vibrant lay leadership. You've pioneered a lot of the technologies of survival that we are now discovering with the internet. So this is a little picture. I showed you the map. There's definitely more stories. There's also lots of stories of people who are becoming quite orthodox. And I don't showcase these communities anymore because, on the one hand, it is to be celebrated, and some of these communities have a very robust Judaism, but it comes at a price. It comes at a terrible price, which for Orthodox communities in Latin America is twofold. On the one hand, they have to give up who they are. They have to start dressing differently. Some communities that work with Hasidic rabbis from Brooklyn have to start like learning Yiddish and try to sing in Yiddish to fit in, to like please the rabbi, to sound authentic. But also there is this massive idea in the Orthodox leaning communities in Latin America that you cannot live an observant Jewish life in Latin America, that the only place where you can really be Jewish is Israel, which is also creating a lot of problems because Israel definitely doesn't want them. And if they don't want the Orthodox ones, imagine how little they want my guys or the Reform ones. So this is a challenge, but we'll leave the challenges towards the end. And now the question, why? Why is this happening? People are supposed to hate us. They shouldn't be like clamoring, like breaking down the door to join us. Here is one of the greatest secrets. This is not a new thing. This is not a new thing. Whenever there is a shift in information technology, there is this huge spike in people from the outside joining Judaism. It happened when the Bible was translated into Greek. People from all of the Roman world started flocking to Jerusalem. Some historians say about 10% of the population of the Roman Empire was Jewish. A lot of them were converts. We know there's documented historical evidence of, for example, the royal house of Adiabin. Adiabin is what today is Armenia, converting to Judaism and moving to Jerusalem. So in year 70, when the temple was destroyed, you know the only cavalry that we had on our side? It was the Adiabinian Royal Guard. Converts on horses were the only people willing to get up on a horse and fight for us. So this is not new. It happened during the Middle Ages. We know the story of the Khazars of the kingdom of Khazaria, also in this area, who converted to Judaism and then were absorbed, and they were killed by the Mongols. But it's been happening in the 16th century when when the printing press comes, and now you have new technologies and people are able to read the Torah on their own. There was this whole group in the Balkans called the Sabbatarians, and the Sabbatarians lived as Jews, never converted. And guess where they died? They died in Auschwitz because the Nazis didn't care. They said, you're Jewish, whatever, you're Jewish and you're Jewish-ish. Yalla, let's go. You heard Rabbi Gershom, the story of the Abayudaya, which is 100 years old. There's this great book called The Jews of San Nicandro.
Yes.
San Nicandro is a town in Apulia, in Italy. During Mussolini, people were like creating little like subterranean shuls and say, we want to convert. And the rabbis in Naples and Rome were like, are you crazy? Are you Meshugana? Can you do this? And they came. So this is not a new thing. But why is it happening now? At least in Latin America, this is what I have observed. I have observed that a lot of these people first dabble with Protestantism. When I was born 44 years ago, Colombia was 99% Catholic. Today, Colombia is 73% Catholic. That's a huge shift. And that shift is mostly towards Protestantism and evangelical culture. But through this, people discover, well, if I don't have to be Catholic, do I have to be Christian? And I see it with my own classmates. Some of them become Buddhists. Some of them have become evangelicals. Some of them become atheists, right? The Pew Report that we are so afraid of in America. Every time the Pew Report comes, like, we're all going to die. It says that 50% of Americans die in a different religion or denomination than the one that they were born into. 50%. Now, most of this is, of course, intra-Christian migration, but also towards secularism, people who are none. I'm not affiliated, I'm nothing. Or also we're seeing it here in Oklahoma. We've been here for 12 years. My wife is a rabbi here at Oklahoma City. We have converted close to 150 people in these 12 years, only 2 of which were marrying Jews. 2. Everyone else, I need a better religion. I need a better faith. I need a better model for dealing with the world. Bible thumping evangelical Oklahoma is not doing it for me. Some people were Catholic, some people were Muslim. Like, I need something better. I need something better for me. So religious diversity creates this zeitgeist in which people can choose. There's a market of ideas. Israel is all over the news. In Latin America, it's not particularly flattering, but also it generates curiosity. Like, what is it with this place? Like, I open my newspaper and there's 3-4 pages dedicated to this tiny piece of land. What is it with the Jews? What is it with Israel? But the main reason is the internet, is the shift in education technology. When I started trying to discover about Judaism, it took, I went to the library of my university and there were 5 books. I could only read them because they were in English. I could read English. There were no books about Judaism in Spanish in my university's library, which is a really good library. It's a good university. Jews are just that invisible in Latin America. But with the internet, you have Sefaria. You have all the books in the world. You have all the, but you don't have enough time to read all the books. And you can find rabbis, and you can have YouTube, and you can learn how to shake the lulav, and you can learn how to do kiddush. And all of this has created this endless repository where people can learn Torah on their own, but also a way for them to find each other. Every single one of these communities that I showed you, and probably almost every single point of this map, started as a Facebook group. Jews in little nowhere town in Colombia that shouldn't have any Jews, right? And then people find this, they're like, oh, I'm interested in Judaism too. Oh, I live the next town over. Oh, my cousin, he does Shabbat. And then they started to aggregate, and then they did the jump from virtuality to reality. And this is the threefold things that are pushing the revolution. What are which is a demographic revolution, but it's also a cultural revolution. Israel and America have invested in the past 60, 70 years on a very ethnic model of Judaism. It's all about culture. Oh, I'm culturally Jewish. or I'm historically Jewish. I have a very strong connection to the Holocaust. I have a very strong connection to Yiddish, which is great. All of these things are fantastic, but this model is definitely eroding, certainly in America, in the sense that people my age and anyone who is younger has an identity that is so complicated because they're Afro, Irish, Jewish, Asian. This idea of like the ethnic Jewish neighborhood where everyone's Jewish and everyone eats gefilte fish does not exist outside from some enclaves in America. But for the majority of American Jews, certainly outside of Orthodoxy, our identity is way more fluid. And when you have a more fluid identity that's more open to different sources, then Judaism will not survive on the inertia of history alone. You have to make it work. You have to make it work. And the way you make it work is you show that this gives meaning. These people are using the tools of Judaism to make their lives more meaningful in ways that are beautiful and in ways that are extremely inspiring because they are so alone. We are today, we have PJ Library and we have like Judaica and the internet. You can buy a lulav on Amazon. They don't have that privilege, but yet they're building a Judaism that is vibrant and excited and proud and that focuses on meaning because they don't have blood. Some of them do. So like, oh, well, my ancestry, but one of the things that I have to uneducate myself and then them is like, your blood is not that important. Because it was in the beginning, if you see like articles that I might have written like 15 years ago or 12 years ago, I was all about like, oh, the crypto-Jewish experience, Sephardic in Spain and like the exiles. But then I started to realize that it's more complex. I was meeting people who were, with tears in their eyes were saying, I don't think I have a Jewish background. People who are like Afro-Colombian or native. It's like, I don't have anywhere to be Jewish from. Does that mean I don't have a Jewish soul? Does that mean I cannot join? And I said, no, that's ridiculous. You're incredible. We love you as you are. You don't have to pay a genetic price, a genetic swipe card, like, oh, yes, I have the right DNA, right? In order to be attracted to Judaism. So when you create that model and you said, focus on meaning and focus on meaning for you, because what the Judaism that gives meaning to American Jews in San Francisco is going to be different to the Judaism that gives meaning to people in Uganda and in Colombia. But there's a lot of commonalities and we can share information, particularly now that we're all connected in this virtual shtetl, right? This is not the virtual village. This is the virtual shtetl, right? I can learn from rabbis in San Francisco. I am teaching people in the jungle. People in Israel are learning with my students in Chile. It's like the world just got way smaller and we're only catching up. And I have great faith in the capacity of these communities to not only thrive Jewishly, but also create a Judaism that is going to be appealing and is going to have elements that will inspire Jews elsewhere and create a far richer, textured Jewish world, right? In which you can go like pretty much all the way down the Pacific coast of the Americas and have increasingly better Jewish food as you stop in every little shul and the food gets a little bit spicier and more flavorful. I am running out of time. I really want to listen to your questions. So with the last 2 minutes I have, I want to show you something. I want to show you something because it is one of the things I consider to be one of my life's greatest achievements. In the beginning, these communities were very focused in imitation, which I think it's healthy and it's necessary for communities of converts. They're trying to sound Moroccan, they're trying to sound Sephardic, because we're Sephardic, whatever. So they were trying to imitate Jewish life. But I said, like, great, that imitation is a great way of learning. But I need you to find your Jewish neshama. I need you to find how you, as a Caribbean Jew, are in the world. And I need you to stop at a point, you need to stop becoming a consumer of Jewish culture, and you need to start producing Jewish culture. And my community was like, no, we're like, they were being very demure and very, but finally they got it. And this is what they have produced. This is the music of my community in Colombia. I think if you are a synagogue goer, you will recognize the words, but I'm sure you've never heard them sung like this. This is the traditional rhythm of northern Colombia. It's called vallenato. It has African percussion, native, that is an Indian instrument called guacharaca, like this armadillo thing that you scrape. And the accordion was brought by German immigrants. So it's this beautiful fusion. This is who you are. And if this is who you are as a human, this is who you are as a Jew. Let it shine. Let Torah shine through who you are, and we'd all be richer. And finally they listened, and I'm covering it all with flowers, so I'll let you listen. Every single musician is a member of the congregation. The accordion player, when he did this, was 14. He's now starting to be a doctor. He gives us so much knowledge. Okay, I will put the link. Oops. I know it's beautiful, but let me put the link in the chat. Oops, so we can get some questions. And that is all I have to say.
Juan, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
What a amazing story, and the communities you've touched are blessed to have your enthusiasm, your passion, your support, and it's infectious. I can feel it, and Yasher Koach all over the place.
Baruch Tieh.
I'd love to open up to this group. If anyone has any questions, comments, curiosities, this is our chance. So you can unmute or raise a hand, and I'll try to facilitate. But
we're all doing this. This, by the way, it is a church, but it used to be a synagogue. This is Santa Maria la Blanca. This is the Ibn Shushan synagogue in Toledo, where I like to dream that my ancestors prayed. But something like you, what are you? Are you Sephardic? Are you Ashkenazi? It's like, I'm post-Sephardic. I'm post-Sephardic. I'm a Latino Jew. I take all of the fruits that I need, and then I make them into ceviche, and I put some chili in it, and it's really delicious, and it's kosher. So let's move on. Let's not get stuck on the labels.
We'd like to start. Don, thank you. Yeah.
Rabbi, you said at the beginning that you have a website.
Yes. So the website is Kol Tuv Sefarad. I'm going to put it in which means all the good of Spain, because in the beginning I was very like, Sephardic, everything. But I do think that the Sephardic Judaism in its openness, and also having Ladino, which is understandable to most Latinos, is a good building block. It's a more relatable experience, and it's a good starting point. KolTuvSefarad.com is kind of a repository. Most of my stuff now is just YouTube. I have the strange distinction of being, I think, the conservative rabbi with most followers on YouTube, which is I think it's a good thing. And here's the thing: those 12,000 followers are not like the Jews of like Secaucus and Poughkeepsie. These are this is the periphery. This is the outer walls. These are the forgotten ones. And I'm very glad to be that door. Say, look, I don't know if you want to become Jewish, but I want you to understand what Judaism is. Like, that's my first. I don't want you to have fantasies with Judaism because, and I'm sure that I don't know if it happens as much in San Francisco as it happens in Oklahoma. People don't really understand us. I get hugged at Walmart a lot. Oh, God bless you. You're doing all those sacrifices at the temple for, like, we don't do that anymore. Like, so I just want people to understand, like, this is Judaism right now, and it's wonderful, and we're open for business. And if you want to take good things from us, learn from us. Don't hate us. That's a good thing. That's a great start. No, what we preach, but also if this is something that you want to bequeath to you and your posterity, there is no reason you can't do it. You can't say, like, this is what I want for my kids. 50% of Americans are already doing it. This is the zeitgeist. And not only do we have the zeitgeist, we also have the tools. We have rabbis willing to teach. We now have, before COVID, I'll tell you a sad story. I was about to quit. This was COVID hit just after Purim, and I had a really bad winter. Like, I can't get anyone to recognize them. I have 5 of my students have open processes of aliyah with the Israeli government that are not going anywhere. They're being flat out rejected. The rejection from my own movement hurt the deepest. I'm never going to be able to include them. I'm never going to be able to create a community where these people can meet other Jews and be part of a global people. My camera, 1 second. It gets fuzzy. I lose focus. But then COVID hit, and then I realized, oh, now everybody's living where you used to live, and now communities are opening their Yom Kippur Zoom rooms to everyone. And my folks have benefited so much from COVID because all of a sudden, they're not only invited to all of these places where they could not go before, but they're more fluent in the ways of being Jewish online than most Jews, which is a great advantage. So I have more hope. It's still, I tell folks, this is a generational revolution. We might not see the fruits, but we have so many people falling in love with Judaism all over the place. It's not just Latin America. It's America, it's Asia, it's Africa, it's Europe. Folks from Poland rediscovering their roots. We have a great product. And I hate to sell it like this, but it's true. We have a great product. Like, the way of being Jewish, of living in the world as a Jew, is a fantastic way of, we can deal with success, we can deal with persecution, we can deal with poverty, we can deal with all of the things have been thrown at us, and we've been able to survive. Isn't that a tremendously resilient and versatile and flexible way of being in the world? How do we support and advocate for the individuals and communities you describe that are facing barriers to recognition and acceptance? I think there's 2 very concrete ways of doing it. Right now, there is a couple of students. This is the next generation. There is a fantastic woman named Rebecca Orantes. You need to get her. Rebecca is fantastic. She's 24. She's the president of her shul in Guatemala. She's the daughter of the founders of the shul. Not only that, but she is a first-year rabbinical student in HUC. She's now in Israel learning to be a rabbi. She's the next Gershon Sizomu. She is like, there are some people like that. And I'm sure you're like those people who heard from Rabbi Sizomu. He had to come from Uganda to America to get his rabbinical degree. It was really tough. Like these people need not just material support, which is always needed, but also what I always tell people is suspend disbelief. If anything, if my story serves something, the next time some crazy Latino comes with a story of why they might have like Jewish ancestry, or why, like, I don't know why I love, like, I feel this attraction to Judaism, say, you know what? I heard this rabbi, and there's like a lot of Latinos that are like, do you want to come to Beth Shalom? Like, do you want to come? I'm going to show you. Let's get through that barrier together. And I'm sure the Rabbi-in and like all the staff would be like they would have a very different experience than I do. But if you are limited by language, we have so many Hispanics here in America who are like, oh, I'd love to go to Emanuel, like the synagogue here in Oklahoma. But it's like the sermons, like the sermons in English and the books in Hebrew. So what did we do? We put bilingual sidurs. My sidur is there on the website. You can download it for free. It has the Hebrew, it has the transliteration, it has translation, and just put some sidurim outside, like sidur in Spanish. And you never know who's going to come through that door and say, wow, you thought of me. You knew I was coming. And then once they're coming, say, we've been waiting for you. What took you so long? We missed you. We really want people to have a positive experience of Jews. And like these people have incredible experiences of Judaism. I've been getting pictures of like the kids in the sukkah, and they have like these toy lulavim that they made from, like, I don't know, newspaper and like construction because they can't buy or afford one. It's like, my God, I just taught Hebrew school this morning, and we had like 7 lulavim, and the kids were dropping the etrog and sticking it up their noses. And like these kids are like, this is my lulav. And I'm going to shake my lulav. And it's a fake lulav. But oh my God, they're loving Judaism. But what they don't have is a good experience with Jews. Because every time they go to the synagogue in the big city, in Bogota, in Mexico, in Lima, and knock on the door, they get shoved away very unceremoniously. When they call Israel, say like, hey, can I go, like, even people with conversion, can I go on birthright? And they say, nah. So the experience of these people with Jews is not great. So when they come to you, when it comes to be your opportunity, be welcoming, because they love you, they love Jews, they love Torah, they love God, they love Israel, they love everything that surrounds you. They love your ancestors in many ways, in a deeper, more like visceral way than even we do. But they don't have any flesh and blood Jews that are like embracing them and saying, I see you. I see your longing, even if I don't see you as a brethren. Right? Like maybe you're still cooking, maybe you haven't converted, maybe you have strange ideas, but you know what? I see the promise. I see the yearning. I understand why you pine for this. I understand why you want what I have, because what I have is beautiful. When I gave this, like, I've been telling my story for a long time, and I will be prompt in finishing. Whenever I gave this in New York, and I was a JTS, so I did the New York circuit a lot. The first question that, like, it was always this old guy, male, in the back, said, but Rabbi, I was not a rabbi then, but they call you rabbi when you're a rabbinical student. It's a curse. Why would anyone want to be Jewish? Judaism is so horrible. And then I would get upset. It's like, how do you say it's horrible? This is beautiful. This is like people have risked their lives to preserve it. And it was not just lox and bagels. It was like this deep, meaningful experience of living in the world. And the thing I don't understand is I get the same when I finally broke the glass ceiling and had access to the communities in Latin America. I try to have like a serious conversation with these communities. Like, you guys are committing suicide. You have this eager demographic that wants to join you, that wants to contribute. Yeah, they might not be super rich, and yeah, they're melanated. Deal with it. But like, why wouldn't you come? Why wouldn't you want them in your building? And they said, well, Judaism is so horrible. If it's so horrible, why don't you want it for everyone? It's like, it's like that Borscht Bell joke. How was the food? It was terrible. And such small portions, right? Like, no one is going to, I tell them, Judaism is not pie. It's not pie. If I have a pie, if there's 10 of us, then there's more pie if there's 20 of us. But Judaism is not pie. The more Jews there is, the more pie there is. like it's exponential. Like imagine like all of these flavors of Jews with Africa and Latin America and Asia coming together. Why wouldn't you want that? Like why do you want to, like, I don't understand their attitude. It baffles me. It saddens me. Some days it sickens me. But we fight on. And yes, that is my simple advice. Have that radar open for those bright young leaders and help them make the way through the world. They need you. They need you. They have so much Torah to give. I like to see, to bring Rebecca Orantes to your like young professionals and say, this woman is 26. She's been the president of the synagogue. She's a rabbinical student. Let her tell you how she feels about Judaism, because it's not going to be like anything they're going to get in America. But also when you meet people on the street that have curiosity, not just Latinos, anyone, just say, yeah, Judaism is beautiful. You want to learn? Like I want to teach you. And it doesn't mean that you have to become Jewish, but if you have a curiosity, better understand what you're curious about. Because if they have crazy ideas about Judaism, it hurts them, and it definitely is going to hurt us, because crazy ideas about Judaism allow for a lot of, trust me, I get mail in Oklahoma, like addressed to pastor, and then I open it as like 12 pages of how the end of the world is going to. Give me 30 seconds and I will answer this. This is a really good question. How do we teach our children about Latino, Latinx Jewishness beyond the crypto story? Travel, show them like it's these communities, all of these communities. I can vouch for every single one of them. I know it's COVID, but go see them. Take your kids, take your grandkids, take your friends, organize trips. See a different way of living Jewish life. It's not that far. It's not Uganda. Uganda's mind-blowing. Uganda, if you go visit Gershom, like your life's going to be changed. But a flight to Guatemala is not as expensive. A flight to Santa Marta is not as expensive. And these people will love you, will wine you and dine you and show you around. And you will fall in love with them. I fell in love with them. And I am absolutely sure so will you. And that is all I have to say tonight. Thank you very much. I know it's a lot of shul and a lot of Zoom, and it's Sunday night, but thank you so much. I am very, very honored to be given this opportunity and share my story and the story of so many people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What an uplifting way to end the weekend and start the week as well. And a beautiful ending to our series. So Rabbi Juan, thank you. So appreciative, and wish you a great end of Sukkot and a Simchat Torah.
Absolutely. Give your rabbi my love. I miss him a lot.
And I just want to thank Be'chol Lashon for being a partner throughout our process during our DEI grant work, and of course the Jewish Federation for the funding to do this DEI grant work, to have speakers like Rabbi Juan join us. Yes, there's a question, how can they get in touch with Rabbi Mejia?
I just put my email.
There you go.
I'm terrible. It takes me a couple because I have 3 kids, but yes, I do check it eventually.
And you're welcome, Gita. It's been my pleasure, and just so grateful that people have been along the way and along the journey. And I know that this will have an impact on our community moving forward. Yes, Lori, you can see all the other presentations. You should be able to locate them either directly from our website or I believe in our YouTube channel. So if you can't find them, Lori, please email me just alohi@beshalomsf.org, and I can try to get you those links as well. Thanks, everybody. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov. Moadim L'simcha.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good night.